By the time the 6th generation was coming to a close, Ubisoft Montreal weren't just one of the most important subsidiaries, but one of the biggest developers in the world. After establishing in 1997 to become the border for the French and English language proved to be an inspired business choice, they helped set up franchises including Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, Far Cry, and Prince of Persia, with Sands of Time in particular being considered one of the greatest games of that generation. Director Patrice Désilets had just come back from his Christmas holiday, and he and his team were ready to create the next big follow-up. Désilets was always bothered by the name Prince. To him, it meant a person just waiting to be king. But an assassin? That sounded like a more interesting concept. A character that said action the second you saw the cover. When he was in college, he read a book about secret societies, and one chapter was about Hassan-i-Sabah, a society made up of assassins during the Third Crusade, and decided to make a game based on that. The original title was Prince of Persia Assassins, where you played as an assassin, to rescue and protect the prince as a child, presumably a prequel. While it still had the platforming prowess of Sands of Time, Ubisoft executives didn't want the main protagonist to be relegated to a supporting role. It was clear that assassins were the only thing on Désilets' mind, because as research persisted, the developers continued to steer further and further away from Prince of Persia. And after knowledge of the next generation's console specifications came to the public, the developers decided to make the game open world. Going by the motto, nothing is true, everything is permitted, massively increasing the number of people involved from 10 into the hundreds, as they needed a new game engine to match their ambitions. After 2 more years of development, the game was still called Prince of Persia Assassins, until after the game developers convention when someone came up with the name Assassin's Creed. And when the first trailer was shown at E3 the same year, what also stood out was some of the glitch effects. Was it a medieval fantasy? Was it science fiction? It did a good job keeping things ambiguous before the release date. However, the whole time, Ubisoft executives were nervous about a new IP near the very early stages of the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Fortunately for them, this turned out to be one of the best decisions ever made in the company's history, because when it was released on November 2007, not only did it sell over 10 million copies across all systems, but also generate a series where a new title comes out almost every year. I honestly don't understand how they do that, but also a franchise of story branches, novels, comic books, and movies. Me? Well, like my experience with Oddworld, I've never played an Assassin's Creed game. I have seen people play the first one a few times when it was new, and I remember the presentation with the clean glitch-like effects looking awesome to me. I initially thought you had to alter history by traveling back in time to fix the future. Nah, it's not that at all. But because I didn't get a 7th generation console until 2009, I don't know, Assassin's Creed was something I didn't pay attention to. Until now.
I'll leave you alone to prepare. Bring glory to the Brotherhood.
Set during the Third Crusade, the Assassin Brotherhood are in order to provide freedom to the land against the Templars, who seek to control it in order to save humanity from itself. With both sides believing they're helping, this obviously creates a massive conflict between the two, who are also fighting over an artifact that would seem to heavily advantage one of the two sides.
Others suffer from corrupted wills, their minds poisoned and twisted. These men must be destroyed.
However, there was a spoiled brat in the midst. Al-Tali ibn la-Ahad had just failed his most recent job to retrieve the artifact from the Templars' leader, Robert de Sablé. I told you I was bad with pronunciations, resulting in the death of an assassin, a badly wounded one, and triggers an ambush on their headquarters. As a consequence, Al-Tali loses his honor, most of his weapons and skills, and if he wants to get them back and restore freedom, he has to assassinate 9 Templar targets.
You'll learn the secrets of their sins. Do not doubt that these men are obstacles to the peace we seek.
Then they will die.
Only, this isn't really happening, it's just a simulation. In the not too distant future of 2012, Desmond Miles, an ancestor of Altair, is kidnapped by Abstergo Industries and forced by Dr. Warren Vittich and Lucy Snellman to enter a dream machine called the Animus, and relive his ancestor's life as an assassin. The real question is, what does Abstergo Industries want from Desmond's memories? What happened during the Third Crusade that makes them interested enough to kidnap a bartender?
What do you want from me? For you to do as you're told. The Animus will allow us to locate what we need. Once we have it, you'll be free to go.
I'm gonna level with you guys. I had to look up the story after beating it because I didn't understand what was going on. How both timelines connect apart from having a modern looking HUD and menu. Nor does it feel like Desmond is controlling Altair considering the two different personalities. But I suppose he's feeling the same way, so maybe that's the point. However, I can't blame myself too much because if you can't present it properly, none of it matters. As you can tell from the gameplay footage, cutscenes use only one camera angle, the voices are too quiet and muffled, and the dialogue emotions and tone never change, which barely creates tension even towards the climax. Desmond sounds like the only one trying. It's Nolan North, so what do you expect?
You expect me to believe you're building a better tomorrow?
That's exactly what we're doing.
Yes, you can occasionally change the angles, which improves it somewhat. I'm trying my best to make it look good for the review. But when all characters just stand there with barely any unique movement and only one camera angle with muffled dialogue during cutscenes, it's hard to be engaged and understand what's going on. I literally forgot the context of what happened at the beginning after I beat it. It's a shame because the actual setting and concept, being technically set in the near future with the main protagonist having to enter the Ancestor's mind into the Third Crusade period, is a brilliant idea that would have opened the floodgates creatively. What was first used as a believable excuse for infinite lives, the idea came from Sands of Time. Because the story is told in flashbacks by the prince, the rewind was implemented to say, no, that's not actually what happened. But when Desolé saw a TV show about DNA, a light bulb went off. What if a machine could read memories of a DNA, or even better, use that DNA relating to an ancestor to reenact their lives? He decided the two must come together, entering a subgenre that is barely used in video games. So it was good to see the team at Montreal did something different from Prince of Persia. If players wanted a medieval action adventure, that's exactly what they got, and more basically. Although I still maintain the execution is so poor, it mostly undoes a lot of it for me.
Be at peace.
You'll pay for this. You and all your kind.
It seems you're the one pays now, my friend. You'll not profit from suffering any longer.
Even the director admitted that trying to immerse you into this open world was a bigger priority. And to be fair, it should be. Especially if they've never done anything like that at the time. And they had to understand how these types of games operate to make it fun for the player. But at the same time, it was a good opportunity for them to do things they couldn't have with the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube due to technical limitations. Whether it's the number of people allowed on screen at the same time, or being able to jump from rooftop to rooftop in a wide area. But with Assassin's Creed, these would become a signature part of the gameplay. The map consists of 3 cities across 3 different countries, a municipality, all joined together by a large kingdom in the middle, which takes around 5 to 10 minutes to navigate. And instead of parodying historical events like Grand Theft Auto, its cities Jerusalem, Accra, and Damascus are designed to be authentic to its real-life counterpart if it was set centuries earlier, with Nicholas Quentin saying, when you work with history, you need to take it a little bit more seriously.
Some of it seems to contradict what the Animus is showing me.
Anyone can write a book, and they can put whatever they want on its pages. Anything.
But because it's set in a simulation, they wanted to add a few of those modern touches as well. The colors are based on the mood and weather of the city you're walking in, and there's the occasional visual glitch, both in a good and bad way. The frame rate is quite choppy, at least on the PlayStation 3 version. Some non-playable characters pop out of nowhere, but I guess that's another upside when you set it in a simulation. You can pass these off as being part of the Animus just playing up.
I'm getting weird temperature readings. I think the Animus is overheating.
Christ, it's always something.
I think it looks great. It's clear the artist put a lot of effort into it, and is another way to make the player feel freer. That realization that you're in a simulation. Nothing is true, everything is permitted.
What is the world, then?
An illusion. One which we can either submit to, as most do, or transcend.
What is it to transcend?
To recognize nothing is true and everything is permitted.
Which makes sense. Almost every building of this map can be walked, climbed, jumped on, across, you get the idea. There's no such thing as a dead end. You can go where the crow flies. But instead of this superhuman running on walls, dodging spikes and saws at 1,000,000 miles an hour, in Assassin's Creed, see how he notices all the edges and reacts to each one? Sure, all you've got to do is hold up on the analog stick, but it's as if a real-life human can climb these buildings. It's quite fluent for something that came out in 2007, which was meant to symbolize the power of the 7th generation consoles. And it's not like they could have used Uncharted for inspiration. That shot of sitting on a high tower is one of the most iconic in 7th generation video gaming.
Make no mistake.
Now I bet almost everyone who's played an Assassin's Creed title has imagined this. What if he botched the haystack layout? In fact, it happened to me once, which occurred on the highest point of the entire map. It's Desmond in a simulation, who cares? Anyway, Altair is up there because he has a job to do. Once you reach a viewpoint, objectives as it pertains to the assassin target appear on the map, including pickpockets, eavesdropping, interrogation, or favors from your brothers, including other assassinations and flag time trials. There are also civilians to save who in return provide support in that area by slowing down enemies whenever you're in trouble, particularly useful in the main assassin missions, and 100 flags per city/kingdom, and 60 Templar soldiers throughout the whole map. Completing these along with taking out a main target unlocks a core memory, and another piece of the city to explore. Most of these missions require you to blend in, whether it's sitting next to civilians, behaving like them, lightly pushing them out of the way, or hiding in haystacks or rooftop gazebos. This is called social stealth, and your suspicion levels are labeled and color-coded. So for example, whenever you're spotted as a threat, it flashes red, and to get away you need to use all the blend tricks I just mentioned a few seconds ago, or just take them all out. Either way works. The way the controls work, you choose between low and high profile with one of the shoulder buttons. So when you enter low, you move slowly and quietly, reducing the chances of being caught by enemies, whereas high profile is basically the opposite, though you're required to be proficient at both. It's something you learn quick. Aside from the Templars, the AI are quite dumb. When pickpocketing, the target keeps looking behind, I clearly stand out, yet I take it almost immediately, still has no clue it was me. And whenever it looks obvious that I killed someone, whether it's an interrogation target or saving civilians, as long as I hold the blend button, they won't batter an eyelid at you.
Where is the one responsible?
Yeah, I'm not very subtle on my first playthrough. And when exploring the rooftops, if you get spotted, he'll tell you to stop trespassing, just hide, he'll forget about you, then go for the stealth kill. I mean, I suppose it's only an issue that's more funny than frustrating, and that's not to say it doesn't get harder at all. As you advance through the maps, each part of a city has more obstacles than the previous one, with more people carrying droppable items, asking for coins, pushing you for no reason, and more soldiers on all angles and elevations, stronger with increased suspicion of you. It gets to a point where walking around gets you in trouble, and you need to be more sync with the environment. It certainly takes longer to escape after an assassination, but all you've got to do is hold the blend button for a few seconds longer and use the eagle vision a few more times, which makes the slight increase in difficulty feel more tedious than challenging because there's just more of the same thing to go past. Eventually all you'll want to do is commit to a high profile out of boredom.
You do not free the cities as you believe, but rather damn them. And in the end, you'll have only yourself to blame.
You could probably say the same thing about every single game. I really hope saying that doesn't ruin all your favorites, but hear me out. If you look at GTA 4 and Saints Row 2, which came out just after Assassin's Creed, if you break it down, all you do is go from point A to B to take out enemies. However, you feel that sense of progress with new safe houses, more powerful weapons, increased difficulty curve, the different ways you fight your way through, the set pieces, and story-wise, they're way more engaging. In Assassin's Creed, for every target you assassinate, you increase your maximum health, unlock a new weapon and or a new skill, whether it's counter, dodge, heavy attack, you get the idea. The throwing knives in particular are very useful since they can kill enemies silently with one hit. But otherwise, none of this stuff matters, because you can beat the entire game just by endlessly pressing the attack button until you finally get a swipe and occasionally counter.
Little challenge? Listen to you. Such arrogance.
That's why I'm not a big fan of the melee controls. No matter how many enemies you take on, you can find yourself in a situation where the aftermath looks like something out of God of War. Attack and counter are the only moves you need to know to survive the entire playthrough. Regenerating health has a lot to do with it as well. The only part of the game I was frustrated by were the timed informer assassination. Because there's a time limit, you need to rush as well as stay quiet. And that's not an easy thing to do on the final part of the map when all eyes are looking at you up to that point. According to Desolé, there were plans to have multiple side missions, but that would have meant an extra year of development. And Ubisoft didn't want to delay it for too long since the IP already felt like a giant risk as it is. That might explain why the kingdom is so big, yet it has less to do than any of the cities combined. And just before it was about to be released, the only investigation-based missions were interrogation and eavesdropping. Therefore, there was even less to do, so they had to quickly add a few more. Seriously, if this game only had those two mission types along with what the rest of the game had to offer, there would be no franchise.
Tread carefully, boy. I do not like your tone.
And I do not like your deception.
It's not the way they're designed or that they're virtually unplayable. When you enter a city for the first time, climbing the top of the towers, buildings, saving civilians, finding clues and taking out your first target, it's all good fun. But as you enter other cities, you realize it's the exact same process. The same type of clue searching, non-playable characters, places to hide. It's the lack of things to do. Nor do you have to change your approach even towards the final battle. In fact, the only things that change over time are the dialogue for each non-playable character, and as I mentioned earlier, that one camera angle and lack of real tension or engagement. Just everything overall makes for a very hollow experience. Repetitive is the biggest understatement you can make about Assassin's Creed.
La gloire du Seigneur!
Very early, it feels like something that could have been a masterpiece because there are a lot of incredible ideas. The concept alone intrigues you enough to probably try it at least once, but they're overshadowed by aspects that are either flawed or repetitive. There's not enough to do to keep me playing this in giant spans, and why this review isn't around half an hour like most open world action adventure reviews. Who thinks it should be remade with more to do and better graphics?
Thank you.
It is a shame that the other assassins continue to hold you in such poor regard.
Rafik, I do not care what the others think of me.
To be fair, it was a brand new IP. The developers' first ever attempt at making an open world map, let alone the next generation, which meant they were also trying to build the game engine at the same time. And it also came out before Grand Theft Auto 4. So when it sold around 10 million copies, therefore a sequel was a guarantee, it was their chance to prove that they can learn from their mistakes. And from what I've heard, at least with the second one, they did exactly that. But what about this one? Is it worth going back to now that it's one of the most popular franchises in the world? Well, since it uses a sequel bait ending, making it clear the second one is a continuation, I'd say it's better to wait until I review that one before I can fully answer that question.